this group. The GETS program, which is Georgia Enterprise Technology Services area. I think that was one of the areas you wanted us to focus on a little bit today in detail. That's the public-private partnership area, so the outsourcing. There are 3 states in the nation that have embraced the outsourcing model to deliver its network and infrastructure services. There's about 100,000+ users that participate with us in that area. A great number of them are cities and counties that participate with some of the network and infrastructure services. The next one I'll point out is the data sharing and application development space. Agencies that are sharing data, they need to do that in a secure way. So on any given day, there's about 1 million transactions that transmit through the data bus that GTA manages to make sure that those transactions happen seamlessly. And then the third item there that I will mention is Georgia.gov. We're very proud of the work that we've done in that space. It's around 248 million page views there per month. So a lot of citizens finding out information on state government come through that portal. The other area that I'll mention is in the center section, the policy and oversight. So I'd already touched on the fact that we provide project oversight and guidance to agencies. Because in our model, if you think of the IT stack in 3 layers, at the bottom of that is the network, so that's people's connectivity. The next layer is the hardware, or we refer to it as infrastructure layer, and then the application or software layer. So the network layer, we're 99% consolidated across the state. The next layer up, if we look at user count, we're probably about 70% consolidated. And then at the application layer, all of that is delegated out to the agencies for the most part. There's a few exceptions, like a PeopleSoft system that's the state accounting system, but most of those areas that the agencies, being closer to their business needs, look after the application area. And IT security services is very important, I think, to all of us today. Over the last several years, that has become a key focus in IT. And so we have an organization within GTA that's their responsibility to, again, assist with agencies to make sure that we're staying focused on what we're doing to better secure the state's information, the citizens' information. Slide 4 is now getting a little bit more into the outsourcing private partnership area. When you say, well, what are the type of services that are covered in that space? We've listed those across with the sub-layers in each one. But again, GTA is a shared service organization. So in this area, an agency is purchasing a product, really a service from us, and then we're providing that, and then at the end of each month, providing them a bill that they pay. And as we get into some of the areas where the budget, GTA has an admin fee that covers our costs to provide those services beyond what the service providers charge us. So again, some of those areas, from cloud computing to managing and running a Tier 4 data center to, print to getting the items in an envelope and out the door, those type of services come through the service providers that we contract with. On the next slide, I wanted to cover just a few areas to give you a sense of the type of different entities that we're servicing. If you look at the small white circle, that's the enterprise agencies. There's 14, 15 agencies in that group. They make up around 70% of the state spend in IT. They have some of the more information that you'd want to secure in the greatest possible way that you can. And so we provide those services, meeting many of the federal guidelines. Almost all of your federally regulated data agencies are within that group. Then we expand out to the next part of that circle, which is the balance of the executive branch agencies, providing service to those. When we talk about executive branch agencies, constitutionally elected office holders do not fall within our authority. We do provide some services to them, but it's an at-will type situation. And those 1,200 entities in the broader green circle represent the cities and counties across the state that choose to buy some services from us. If you take all the circles into account, there's around $197 million a year spent in those two layers of the IT stack. When you compare that to the full stack, the state spends just north of $700 million a year when you consider its entire IT spend. And then on slide 6, this is our good news story, and I think will take you into the discussion you wanted to have with us today, is some of the reductions in cost. So when we look at what we've been trying to accomplish as an organization since the initial public-private partnership that began in 2008, the outside entity that the state was working with took a snapshot of how much the state was spending at that time in 2008 on all the in-scope services. So taking that line and looking at what we have spent from 2008 forward, you can see the savings. It's had some ups and downs, but typically that number has remained below the baseline. And as you look where it has started to drop off in the last couple of years, that's really driven from the fact of the modernization effort that had gone on through that outsourcing initiative. And also, once we were able to identify all the different systems and starting to standardize, I would say the biggest driver there of savings has come from the standardization. If you also look at the fact that with our service providers, they have a pretty significant financial risk of a data breach, and so their ability to make sure that the state is following best practices, they have a vested interest in doing that as well. And so that is driving some of the reductions that you're seeing. If you look on your tracking documents where you see the reductions for GTA, again, I mentioned earlier that we have an admin fee that we add. That fee has been set at 8.52% for a number of years. And the reduction that we've been able to achieve is to move that to 6.73%. So that fee that we add to every invoice that we send out is reduced. That accounts for about $2.75 million of the savings. And so that's from accomplishing items where we used to negotiate a contract with each of these service providers. We've moved to a master service agreement that if you're bidding with the state on these types of services, rather than spending tons of time and legal expenses and consulting expenses, they're being driven to, and we call it an MSA, that they have to agree to at least 99% of the language in the MSA. We'll do an amendment to agree to the few things that might be necessary for the type of service that they're providing. So that has saved us a lot of time and dollars. And then, like all the other agencies, we have looked at vacancies and headcount and things like travel and just reducing items in those areas. We had a pretty significant savings in changing a piece of software on the mainframe. It's called View Direct. They're the only group. This company has purchased that product. We have been seeing double-digit increases, so there was a significant savings in moving off of that. A lot of agencies had to assist with that move. So again, every agency was using that piece of software through the mainframe to print reports out if they were still leveraging mainframe for services. So it's items like that where we have reduced. Honestly, with some of the shared service items, some of those contracts where we have been able to achieve reduced rates, that's been in flight for well over a year and a half from the time that we started those procurements to awarding them. And because of the standardization and all that we've achieved, that has driven a lot of cost reduction across the enterprise. So that, again, because we bill what the service providers charge us to the agencies and then add our admin fees. So they're benefiting from reduced rates and a reduced admin fee for those services. And so if you go to my last slide, which is slide 7, it actually shows in some areas storage cost, storage consumption has significantly increased since we have been in the outsourcing model. you think about the value of data to be able to obtain information from it. It's very important, I think, for agencies to keep that data, because as data science and analytics become something that they get more involved in, having historical data to be able to use is important. And so you can see how that's increasing. On the right side of that chart, we picked a major item where we charge for servers. And you can see the orange line where those servers have slightly decreased since 2008. But the blue line represents the computing power. So as those systems have become more powerful, we're actually spending less money on the actual servers than we are and meeting a much greater demand, because as we all know, over the last 10-year period, we're using a lot more computing power across the state than we were 10 years ago. So to be able to do that in a much more efficient manner has been, again, something that we're extremely proud of, and helping the agencies meet their missions that they're responsible for every day. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to talk about anything else you'd like us to cover.
All right, questions? Well, I can go ahead and start, I guess. I know we've heard from a lot of our agencies that they're reducing travel and going to utilize technology to gain a lot of savings.
Right.
But yet they're reducing a lot of their technology. So I guess do you have any comments on that? If we're not going to travel anymore, but we're going to use more technology, but yet we're cutting our technology back, how are we going to utilize technology more?
Mr. Chairman, I think if you look at our reductions in like our admin fee, that's a huge portion of what you're seeing that's passing through to the budget. I think that totals the total reduction, I think, is around $5 million. A little bit over half of that is just the admin fee. I think if you look also at the fact of where our rates have been reduced, that number's more than I think the balance. So there's still some dollars left in agencies to be able to do some new things in technology. At the end of the day, as a shared service organization, we have to be pretty comfortable that an agency can pay their bill. And so with what they're doing today, there's enough dollars there for them to do that. Okay. We also have, again, some other contracts that are in flight that we believe will even bring greater reductions to state agencies, especially in their network costs. That's the next one that is up for rebid that we're actively working now. So, and again, with all the standardization that's gone into place, and then some of the new technology that will be leveraged, that should drive another notable amount of reductions.
Okay. Number one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, as the chairman sort of just alluded to, a lot of people are reducing some of their travel expenses based on the technology and things like that, and so you guys are handling a lot of those services, I guess. With regards to drives, the program with the IRS and the Department of Driver Services now, what is your role in sort of helping with that?
All right, our role with the Drives program, Driver Services is one of our large enterprise agencies, so we provide to them their network, and we provide most of their infrastructure, their hardware piece. And so to each of their locations around the state. Now you might say if there was an outage, that increases travel costs. Well, again, because the hands and feet that go solve a technical problem is outsourced, we're paying a service fee that if it's a network outage, AT&T is responsible for making sure that the uptime for all of those circuits is held to a certain level. And when there is an outage, 100% of that cost is on them to travel, to repair it, and get it back within operations. And depending on how large of an outage it is, there's pretty strict timelines that they have to adhere to get something back online before they start impacting their server level agreements. And if they impact that based on a calculation, they would actually owe the state a credit for not meeting the level of service that we hired them to do. I hope I answered all of your questions.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, going back to slide 3. two things was the, data sharing per se, but more so the data sales. Could you elaborate more into services and data sales? Who are we indeed selling data
Yes,
to
sir.
people? And what is that data, and how much are we getting for that data?
It's a number of different data streams. When state authorities are typically created, you give it a source of funds to pay for the organization. So GTA being authority, we fund our people outside of the SMO, the Service Management Organization, is to pass through costs to agencies. So some of that data would be, you get a traffic violation, insurance underwriters need that information to be able to assign risk to users. So every state sells that data to those entities. If somebody wants to run a felony background check, then that's to be a trusted source that comes from. So for a Georgian felon search, that would come through GTA. If someone wants to purchase birth certificates or something, we provide an online service for them to be able to do that, even though like a public health fulfills those services, that service to the citizen. So there's probably around 10 plus products. There was a new requirement for bus drivers to be checked fairly frequently if they have a violation that would impede their ability to drive for a school system. And so again, we put in a system, those different entities pay for that service. A large organization that would have a huge truck fleet must meet DOT requirements, and so they want to be notified if one of their drivers were to get a DUI or something like that. So that's the type of information that we would sell to the private sector.
How much though, or what's the revenues coming in?
That totals right around the $40 million mark. So.
And one more question, if I may, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. As far as controls, I mean, some of this data I'm sure is very sensitive as far as that, what are we looking at as far as controls, policies regarding, what could be confidential data? Is that an issue, and how have you put controls in place to take care of that?
Yes, sir. The steward of the data is the agency that has responsibility for it. So again, on the driver services, we work with them on selling the data for traffic tickets and that type of thing that occur across the state. There's a number of federal guidelines that direct us on, from CJIS. There's IRS 1075. There's just a number of regulations that we have to map to, and that's one of the responsibilities of GTA, is to make sure at least systems that we operate, regardless of which of our 4 security zones are fitted into the one that has the highest requirements.
One last question, Mr. Chairman. But it seems like you were talking about later on in your presentation. We were talking about. I guess it was, the vendors or service providers, but especially as you look back at the graph where you had the base case and the projected and then the actual, who was the consultant or the company that was doing this?
That was back in 2008. I can get you the name of that entity that we were working with. The entity that I think was an offshoot of them was Integris Applied, that we've worked with some since that date to continue to validate that our program is doing what it was intended to accomplish. So,
thank you.
All right. Chairman Hatchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got 2 or 3 questions, okay. So we don't have any information on a tracking sheet. Do y'all have like a separate budget for them specifically?
No, it's the reductions are scattered throughout everybody's different agencies and divisions. So
Okay, but I'm like curious to how many employees you have working for you and what your overall budget is.
all right. Mr. Chairman, we do have a consolidated sheet from the tracking that came out of the front of the budget book if y'all would like that. So we have, before our reduction, it was 181 staff members. The service management organization that I've talked mostly about, the outsourcing piece, we have around 65 people that manage the service providers. Depending on how much work is going on across the state, we've had a high as much as 600 to 700 service providers working. Normal state is probably around 200, 250 people working across the state to provide services to agencies. The total cost of our agency's budget, when you consider all in, and I think we listed a number at the bottom of slide, slide 5, that's a circle slide. So it's around $197 million a year that GTA is involved with and with oversight of. So a huge portion of that, 170 some odd million, is 100% passed through to service providers. There's also items in there like for projects, oversight of projects, where agency will hire in a third party to provide that oversight. We contract with them, pay those bills, the agency pays us, so that's passed through. There's a tremendous amount of licensing cost, so from an email system, or the state uses some Oracle databases, we contract that at an enterprise level to get the benefit of the pricing levels, but then that gets passed through to agencies to pay for the licensing for their systems.
So in your cuts, have you cut positions, or have you actually laid people off? Numbers?
No, sir, we've not laid anyone off. We had 10 positions that were unfilled that we were not looking to refill. If the budget cuts had not happened, those would have been eliminated anyway. With some of our new contracts with service providers, we had increased some of the scope of what they were responsible for. It was a better fit for the state, other than us trying to cover some individuals that need to be around the state inside working with agencies for that to be provided by a service provider versus the state.
So if you had to take a guess, how long have those positions been open and not filled?
Well, I'll answer that two ways. Probably about 18 months that we made that change, that we were not going to use those positions. But also, as the IT market is becoming more difficult in the Atlanta area to find the skill sets that we need, we will sometimes run as much as 20 open positions. And I think that's pretty close to where we are today, even though we're out actively trying to recruit and replace a number of positions. So
you cut 18, but you still have 20 that aren't filled.
Cut 10,
in addition.
Cut 10, and have about 20 that we're actively
In
soliciting for.
In your testimony, you mentioned that you don't do work for constitutional officers, or maybe you do some. Can you elaborate as to maybe why, and a little more elaboration on who you do work for as far as that?
Yes, sir. From a state constitution standpoint, a state authority can't tell a constitutional office holder what to do. So many of them will participate with us. I talked about the state portal. I think all of them are participating in that area. They can choose to do something else if they wish. At the hardware infrastructure layer, I don't think any of them are buying our full service set of services that we offer, but some of those systems do run in the state data center that's up in Alpharetta. So it's, again, they make a decision on what best fits with their business model, and we help support them. So it's those type of entities. The type of agencies that are 100% in, Department of Revenue is following me. They're in all of your health agencies. Again, that's HIPAA data. So again, trying to really focus on which data do we need to make sure is the most secure. Corrections, office planning and budget. I think I have a list of them somewhere.
So if that information is in your data, then do we have access to that information if we request it?
Which information is that, sir?
Just different information in total. I mean, you have access to all the data that all those departments you just mentioned, and if we were trying to get information about different departments, would that information, you have access to that information, or would we have to go straight to the department?
You would need to go to the department. Again, they are the owners and stewards of the data. We're not allowed to do anything with that data that they haven't directed us to do so.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. The rural broadband mapping, do y'all have, is that complete? The rural broadband mapping, is that complete, or is that still ongoing?
The good news there is on the rural broadband mapping is that we have all the data from the various providers around the state that provide connectivity. And there's a meeting that was starting at the same time as this meeting. I believe the report out there is that over half of that mapping is mapped in on a map, and then they will hit their, they should finish before their June deadline to have the entire state mapped.
Thank you.
And that is down to the address level. So the first time in state history we've had that type of information at an address level.
Chairman Perkle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for coming today.
My pleasure.
As a turkey hunter, you were kind of like this bearded hen turkey, something I've always heard about, but I've never seen. It was. I thank you for saving us money. I thank you for the efficiencies and seeing this corollary to Moore's law, Moore's theory, and practice, and the cost savings. And I've seen you throughout the budget. Every other page in this big document, we see cuts, we see changes in our fees. So I got to tell you, I don't know if it's just Monday, or if it's, I'm still confused because I'm still thinking about turkey season in a few weeks. You are, one of your functions is act as a go-between between us and the private sector that provides some tools, some computing tools is one facet. We will, in a few minutes, have one of our agencies that will be here. And this might not apply to you at all. But when Department of Revenue comes, I know we spent in that $100 million range on the drive system. And I noticed that we have an annual cut of in that $3 million for what we had been using. Is that something that went to y'all? Is that something that y'all have oversight of? Or is that completely held within them? And if it's not held with you, you might not know.
I'll be careful not to answer the Department of Revenue portion of that, but on projects, we play a role in the actual project. So in that particular project, and then there's a second phase of that with driver services.
Right.
So we stood up environments for them to do their development work with their third party that's providing the software to make sure, again, we're going to bring the engineers that will make sure it's designed in a IT secure way. That's the most sensitive data that the state has. The IRS publication on how to secure it would take a case of paper probably to print it. And so one of our jobs is to work with their team to make sure we meet all those requirements because they're going to come in and audit it to make sure that we can turn those systems on. So we each have our roles to play. It's a team effort. But I think I would look at our role as a consolidator, because what we're trying to do is take the needs of all the agencies, standardize it so that we can deliver it in a common, most cost-effective way.
Largely support services.
Support services. So, and we tend never to talk about an outage, but we had an outage over the weekend that we worked with the Department of Revenue on. So our team, his team, took both groups to identify what the issue was, work with the service providers to get it solved. So that's our day-to-day operational type things that we would do. And then you add on the top of that a project, an IT project, at certain dollar amounts, there's more oversight. So on the one that you referenced would have our highest level of oversight. There's a team of independent groups who come in and look and make sure we're following best practices. Agencies have different levels of IT skill sets within them. We'll be very focused on some of the agencies where we know the skill set is low, be more flexible with the ones that we know that they have some skill sets to be able to manage things, but we still expect everyone to follow industry standards, especially when you get into $100 million projects. We get very focused at the $10 million mark. We're involved at anything over $1 million of IT spend. And that's where agencies with, we call it IVMV, they're independent validation and verification entity coming in, reporting out. They're the ones who, they'll get removed if they're not being honest, if we find out something later that they're trying to help. You can't solve a problem if you're not aware of where the risks are. Some risks you may have to accept, others, you need to mitigate. And so that's our role, to work with the agencies to figure out how to do those type things.
All right, thank you.
Chairman Knight, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. One of the things we're seeing, in particularly in some of the other agencies, particularly as we're doing a lot more bigger contracts with a lot of private entities, is we're seeing that these contracts are basically, confidential and proprietary, and we're also seeing that a lot of those contracts, these big vendors, also have subsidiary contracts back down. My question is, are the contracts that you enter into with these outside companies that I'm hearing you talk about, one, are they public and not redacted? In other words, not proprietary and confidential? And then also, in the same question, are there contracts with subsidiary companies of these vendors or affiliated companies, and do you have those contracts, and those contracts also available?
Yes, sir. On the I'll keep referring to it as outsourcing. On the big outsourcing contracts, any subsidiary contract, we have to approve and be a part of that contract. And a lot of that even gets into, all of our contracts must be, U.S. citizens. Data can only be on continental U.S. Those type of things are what we're making absolutely sure is there. I forgot where I was going. So,
Proprietary and confidential.
The open records part of that, or just requesting contracts. I would say they're probably 97, 98% not redacted. When you think about some of the exhibits in our contracts have network design and that type of thing in it. That's a hacker's dream to be able to get to those type of documents. But when if you'd like to see a contract, we can provide that to you. But some of those IP addresses, that type of thing, are going to be marked out. So that's the type of thing that we're trying to protect. If we think it would cause an IT security issue, they're redacted.
Thank you.
I got one last follow-up, I guess. I think you kind of touched on this with Chairman Hatchett's question. I was just noticing that some of the agencies that we have under general government have some pretty substantial reductions. And one that did not was Department of Insurance. It was very small, only like 4,500. While driver services is 274,000 and revenue 780 something thousand.
Right.
And I was just kind of, and it's all across the board. It just seems really random and just a lot of big numbers, small numbers.
Yes, sir.
And I guess that kind of goes back to the admin fees and the services that they have with you guys. But could you just kind of clarify some of that to me? Just
sure.
again?
So in those examples, the insurance commissioner is not a fully serviced agency, which means he's just buying some network from us, maybe some portal on the for his website. So, not very high dollar items. You move over to Department of Revenue, who every one of his servers, all of his storage, every laptop, desktop across the state, he's fully into the managed services. So, so you won't, I'll use a blanket statement that won't be 100% correct, but you won't find a piece of hardware network in his shop that is not fully part of the managed service. Now, I do know he's got a couple pieces of equipment just based on a funding reason was actually purchased by the state. But 99% of the servers in a data center, the state does not own. I buy those as a service. When you no longer need them, we turn them off. So the rate that an agency would pay for those would be whatever the rate is, but it would go to 0. If you turn it off by 1, it's reduced by 1. So it's a consumption-based model. So that's why you've got the disparity in those numbers is the two other agencies are fully managed agencies, the one is not. And so I can provide you a list of the fully managed ones, but the other thing I can provide that you probably don't want is every single item that they're buying, right down to a switch in a closet, to how many ports are used across that location, to how big a circuit is going into a location, who has a laptop, who has a desktop. Every one of those items is on a line item on a bill. So.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, I don't have anything else, Calvin. Appreciate y'all coming down. Hope you get to come back again sooner.
Right.
So I appreciate what y'all are doing over there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if
right.
anybody has any questions, please reach out to us.
All right. Thank you. All right, next we've got Department of Revenue. Commissioner, come on down. Everybody got their sheets before he gets started? Everybody good? We're going to be on page 19 and 21 in the big budget. Yep, we'll be on page 21. Commissioner, if you want to just maybe start back with the amended and just kind of walk us through, kind of detailed some of the changes there, just so we get a better understanding of what those were, and we'll kind of work it that way, and we'll take some questions after the amended, and then we'll jump into the
Yes,
21.
Mr. Chairman. Before we get started, I feel like I owe everyone an apology. We were prepared last time to go over this, and I realized, being my first presentation, we really need to go off your tracking sheets. We had a second sheet, and I think I confused more than I helped. Certainly wasn't intentional. We want everyone to have clarity, so hopefully today when we get done, we can answer all your questions and everybody can have answers to your questions. We're getting started with the amended FY20 budget. As Mr. Chairman stated, we'll start with page 19. And what we'll do is we'll just go down each line item. We'll start with Department Administration. 42.1.1 was adjustment to agency premiums department for the DOAS. That's just insurance programs. No details with that. It's just something all agencies went through. 42.1.2, reduce funds for 2 vacant positions and savings from payroll shared services transition. This was a total of 5 positions. We moved 3 positions to the state accounting office for payroll. There was no one that lost their job there, so it was just a move from Department of Revenue over to state accounting office. The remaining 2 positions were vacant. That gave us a savings of $212,000. If we drop down to 42.1.3, reduce the funds for computer changes to reflect savings from the transition to the state's time reporting, we were still on Kronos. We moved from Kronos to the state's TeamWorks timekeeping, which for this particular department saved us about $9,000. 42.1.4, reduce funds for regular operating expenses. These were travel and conferences. We took a look at where we go, why we go, and if there's an opportunity to do these classes inside the Department of Revenue. That saved us about $9,600. We then reduced the funds for telecommunication expenses to reflect redeployment of end-user equipment. This is something I've talked about previously. This is Verizon phone bills, hotspots, laptops, desktops. People had duplicate services, devices. The monthly fee to GTA. We also, the largest portion of this, we moved from custom servers to standard servers with GTA. Now, on this line item, it only shows $37,000, but in total, that's a lot larger number. I think for FY20, it was about $500,000. For FY21, it's going to be $1.1 million. But again, the larger portion of that is moving away from custom servers that we did not need for GTA and move to a more standard server. Of course, the next item, 42.2, is forest land. Flip it, it's just a flow through, it's $25 million. 42.3 is industry regulation. Again, the insurance through DOAS, $11,000. You drop down to 42.3.2, reduce funds for one vacant position. That was an auditor position. This saved us $48,000. 42.3.3, reduce funds for regular operating expenses. This eliminated the expense security paper to print these licenses on. When you have alcohol license, we did away with printing those on that security paper, which saved us about $25,000. Again, you'll see the timekeeping moving from Kronos to Teamworks, $8,900 for this department. 42.3.5, reduced funds for telecommunication. Again, these are the Verizon phone bills, wireless devices. Again, moving from custom to standard servers. For this area, $17,500. Drop down to 42.4, local government services. Again, DOAS, insurance, $7,000. 42.4.2, computer changes to reflect the savings. Again, the timekeeping, Kronos, this department saved us $8,900. Reduced funds for regular operating expenses. Again, printing, training materials. When tax assessors and tax commissioners go on conferences, in the past, we would print these manuals. For the tax commissioners, they are typically in class at a conference a week after session is out. So a lot of the material we would print, we would have to take pages out, reprint. We finally told them, so look, just go online and print your own manuals. It's going to save us a great deal there. 42.4.4, increased fundings to reflect FY19 firework excise tax collections. That's put back in the budget against a flow through of $65,000. It goes back to locals. 42.4.5, reduced funds for telecommunication expenses. Again, Verizon phone bills, hotspots, laptops, custom servers to standard servers, $2,700. Any questions on the first page? We good?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for coming again. Just two questions, if I may. On 42.3.2, reduce funds for one vacant position. I think you said that was an auditor position?
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, is that one of several auditors, or is that the auditor? Or?
Well, we have several positions. All total, I think there were 28 different positions across the agency. I'm not sure, is that the only auditor we had? The one?
No, there was another auditor as well. This is not a tax auditor.
Yeah. Right.
Auditor
It's in the alcohol and tobacco division, so it's an
Okay.
auditor with alcohol and tobacco.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what this particular auditor does. That's why I just, it seemed like it'd be a very important position. That's the reason.
They are, but when, in just a few minutes, someone, I think Mr. Hartman asked for some information on our auditors and revenue agents. I hope to have an opportunity to go over that as well with you. But we feel comfortable this will not have an impact to the agency.
Okay. And if I may ask one more question.
Yes.
The telecommunication expense redeployment and of end-user equipment, it stated several times it was moving, part of it was moving from custom to standard servers. I'm not sure what I know. I don't know the difference between a standard and a what.
What I know about the servers, I'm not an IT person either, but I was told that we were paying GTA for a custom server, which is far more expensive than just a standard server. We didn't need custom. The processing, we were The data we were sending over and storing was not something that needed custom server. We were paying the higher price tag, but we needed something far less expensive. So we've tried apparently a couple of years to move in that direction. There seems to be an appetite now to listen. So we, again, Department of Revenue was able to move where needed from custom to standard.
Okay. I mean, I just wonder, since you all are moving from those custom servers, if the expense for this custom server still exists somehow or another. I mean, you wouldn't know that, and I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to think, if y'all are moving from a custom server to a standard server, then is somewhere an expense for the custom server, whatever it does. I'm just wondering if it still exists someplace.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I guess it would depend if another agency is taking that custom server.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Chairman Parkle, do you have a question?
I did. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow along with Chairman Parsons' piggyback. In moving from custom servers to standard servers, and no one wants to pay a Cadillac price when, you know, a Chevy Cavalier will do just as well. In making that move, GTA would stop you if it would not follow within that protocol.
We had to get permission from them, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I got a quick one before we move on, I don't want to forget, I guess. On the forest land protection grants, last year, I think we paid out 35 million or so, maybe a little more than that, and we got way behind on those at one time, and we had to appropriate a lot of money to get caught back up. Does that number keep us caught up and fully paid with all of our local governments, or was there another reason it was maybe less than last year?
Well, we had 14 million allocated plus another 25, so now this year we're at 39.
Okay.
Does that keep us caught up,
The
or?
last 4 or 5 years, we've been running about 39 to 44 million. We had a little bit on audit hold from last year that we're still waiting to pay out a little bit, but this will get us whole.
Okay.
So it will make us whole. Okay.
All right. Chairman Harrell?
Thank you. Commissioner, did I understand correctly that there's going to be one less auditor in the ATT Alcohol Tobacco Division? Is that an open place that is not being filled?
It's a vacant position.
Vacant position. Over the last several years, we've done a number of expansions in the area of alcohol, which has expanded the number of responsible taxpayers for collecting and remitting excise tax on alcohol. A significantly larger number of required taxpayers than in prior years. Do you feel that the staff remaining is going to be sufficient to provide the necessary oversight on an expanded number of taxpayers that are now responsible for collecting and remitting excise tax on alcohol through locations that previously were not responsible for collecting and remitting? And if I need to add clarity, I can add specifics.
Well, I believe the Alcohol and Tobacco Division serves a great purpose for the state of Georgia and Revenue Department. If we can look at the total amount of agents that was with ATD in the past and where we are today, we're a lot smaller unit. We're a lot smaller unit. We rely on the federal funding, the grant given to us to help offset the cost to the state. Could that department do more? They're like the rest of us. They're going to go to work every single day. They're going to work very hard to do their job. But with respect to this vacant position, there's a reason it was vacant. It wasn't that we weren't trying to ask people to apply. We did have an auditor position, I've mentioned this before, that we put out, and we had 37 people apply. 37. 5 people came in and took the test. 1 person passed the test. And we're in an incredible economic time now, low unemployment rate. The bad side of that is we're in an incredible economic time. We got a low unemployment rate. So for what we're paying, it's a vacant position that stays out there. Could they do more work? I'm sure they could. I'm sure there's opportunity out there. But under the current salary range the state of Georgia pays, we can't get someone to fill that spot. And these guys, and men and women, they go to work every single day, doing the best job they can with what they've got. So to answer your question, could they do more? I'm sure they could do more. I'm sure that the workload's out there, but in an opportunity to fulfill the request of 4% and 6% reduction, we offered this up because we've got a vacancy and we can't fill it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going back to the forest land protection grants, and a few years ago, the General Assembly passed some legislation trying to find a truer number for the value of the properties. In your auditing process, is that a gauge that you measure against now, or how do we know that we're not paying out too much or too little on these values?
On the flipper? That is a question I need to circle back with you. Ellen Mills, director of LGS, we've been in conversations with Georgia Forestry Association, with several different folks about FLIPA and QTP. With Hurricane Michael coming through and causing such devastation, there's been a lot of focus on forest land. And I would humbly ask that you allow me to come back with you, to you with that answer. I'm sure Ellen's got an excellent answer. I don't have one for you today.
Thank you. Just to our chair. Thank you.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, back to the audit, this industry auditor, and I think you said you're going to get into more of the audit staff, but this General Assembly, through appropriations and again in partnership with Ways and Means, has tried to make sure that we are making sure we're collecting, okay, the taxes that are due to the state, and that people are following the laws of the state of Georgia. And I understand your problem from a point of view of going out there and having a problem finding people, but cutting this position when in essence maybe we should be figuring out how to get a little more money for this position so that we make sure that we've got the audit staff necessary to collect money and to make sure that industry is following the rules and laws and rules and regulations that this body sets. So I find that sort of counterintuitive, if you will, to what this General Assembly, especially this Ways and Means and this Appropriation Committee, have tried to do over the years, which is very vital to this state.
Well, and I agree, it sounds counterintuitive for the auditor. That's when we'll get to this big sheet. I want to brag on the technology, the innovation that's been brought to the Department of Revenue over the last 10 years. I can show excellent work that ITS systems and the Department of Revenue are doing. I spoke to our Director of Compliance this morning. We've had several conversations. And when we get to this larger sheet, you will see that we're operating with 100 less people than we were 10 years ago. But you can also see our collections are exponentially higher. So I asked him, I said, tell me why. Why and how is it that we're doing so much better today than we were 10 years ago? It's innovation and technology. It's ITS. Do we need auditors? Absolutely, we need auditors. We need revenue agents. But the vision of the future is to continue to program ITS so it catches the tax returns, that you don't have to have so many eyes look into the tax returns. We can use ITS as a system to catch the bad characters.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I hate to keep on this auditor, but is this auditor position in any way generate revenue for your department, for the state, whether that's through fines, et cetera?
I'm sure every auditor generates revenue.
How much?
We got a specific on alcohol and tobacco. we've got a breakdown of auditors in the tax division. We brought that sheet for you, and I think you just were given a sheet. But with respect to alcohol division, I can't tell you exactly what that auditor does for alcohol and tobacco. I can tell you what the auditor produces, return on investment in the tax side. So again, with the alcohol and tobacco, I don't have that information. If you're talking about auditors on the tax side, we've got all that information in front of you here and be happy to go over it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go to the next page, page
Yeah, if
20
you
maybe.
want to flip over to the next page.
Some of this is, as you've probably already seen, is standard. 42.6 motor vehicle registration and titling. You have your DOAS insurance programs for $21,000. 42.62. Again, the timekeeping chronos to Teamworks, 8,900. And that's going to be consistent across divisions. 42.63, reduce funds for 6 vacant positions, 5 admin support positions, and 1 IT support manager, $334,000. Again, that was 5 admin positions, 1 IT support, all currently vacant. 42.64, this is the, this talked about earlier, drive implementation, drives, pulling back gratis. We kept gratis in the background running. It wasn't parallel to drives, but we kept the system out there as a read-only because tax commissioners needed to go back in there and pull reports. There was information on titles that they would need to go back and pull data. So while the system was out there as a read-only, it wasn't live, but it was there keeping information. We're going to shut it down June 30th. Originally, gratis was only going to be up 60 to 90 days after drives. We felt like that was too short. We felt like there was information there tax commissioners would need to go back to and retrieve information. But that system will go down June 30th, and that $3 million was originally allocated will go back to the Treasury. You had a question earlier about drives and gratis. Does that answer it? You asked Calvin about the 2 systems. Again, we've been allocated $3 million to maintain gratis. We're going to shut it down June 30th.
Commissioner, while we're right there, just, I guess, what is in, that's a big number, and I just want to make sure the committee fully understands what is in that number that we're getting those savings from?
That's
Is
the
that
cost.
computers or servers or people?
Servers,
or-
GTA. It's a maintenance, it's the servers, it's the maintaining of the servers with GTA.
And there's no information that's important. I mean, it's all, everything's been transitioned over. We're good.
That's why we kept it online from May of 19 all the way through June 30th of this year. Again, originally that was going to be online just 30 to 60 days. Tax commissioners had heartache about that because there was a lot of information held on titles that once we pull it offline, it goes away. We can't crank it back up. So we wanted to leave it on as long as we could.
Okay,
So-
and there weren't employees that were working on
No.
that system and the drive system that
Absolutely
now we
not.
don't need
Absolutely
either
not.
or anything like that. It was just there for,
Read only.
okay. Okay. And we have the people, I guess, fully educated on how to work the new system.
We're trying. They come kicking and screaming sometimes, but, and to their defense, you've got some very rural counties where you have a single tax commissioner and maybe a part-time employee. It's difficult for them to take time to go train properly at drives compared to someone like a Henry County or a Gwinnett County that can send part of their staff and be well-versed on it. The Department of Revenue did send trainers to those counties to help sit with those tax commissioners to train them. So yes, we're a lot better positioned today than we were a year ago, but we continue to see improvements. We had a meeting with tax commissioners last week. They shared some of their things they're seeing from financial reporting. We had the IT developers in the room speaking with them, but we are a lot better positioned today than we were a year ago.
Okay, but you've had to cut back on a lot of your travel.
Yes, sir.
So I guess, are you going to have the resources to get these people in those rural areas where they understand?
Like I said, we're in a better position. We've got
Okay.
GATO coming up, Georgia Association of Tax Officials coming up in May. So after session is over, We're going to give several classes. We've already met with tax commissioners, finding out what their pain points are, and address those in a GATO meeting where everyone is together in one room in Athens. So hopefully we can cut down on the travel. Hopefully we can answer those questions, continue to get better, make the changes in drives we need to, and the end user, which would be the tax commissioner's office and staff, and the taxpayer won't see any hiccups.
Okay. Chairman Purgle.
Thank you. And thank you for that explanation regarding the gratis and the drives. But, and I've mentioned before that our tax commissioners, our county tax commissioners, are de facto agents for us, and they collect a boatload of money for our benefit. We need to make sure that they have the tools they need to do it efficiently. If they are if they're still pulling reports on the gratis system, is that a learning curve?
I don't think they're pulling reports any longer. The reporting was the 2 or 3 months. Distribution, a lot of times for the digest, the digest is due August 1st, so they were having to pull numbers from TAVIT, ad valorem tax to put on their digest. That was the purpose of keeping it up past July 1 of last year. Since then, we've allowed gratis to exist for titling issues. If there were any mistakes, you may remember that a lot of car dealers and third-party title processors were having difficulty. There was a program glitch that, not in drives, through the third party, that they would misread a serial number. They would put a hold. All the titles to the state of Georgia go through a national clearinghouse, so to speak. So if I sell you my pickup truck and it goes through, there was sometimes there was a character out of place, maybe a 1 or an I, something like that, that was mistranscribed, and it might show up as a salvage title. You get a title in the mail. I've sold you my truck in good faith. You get a title in the mail that has a brand on it. Then we had to go back and correct that. There were tweaks like that in the system. So for the last year, it's been less reporting and more to do with correcting title issues.
Okay. You've seen less use of this background gratis system as we gain more expertise in the drive system.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Again, the reporting had to do with the digest being submitted, working with the tax assessor's office. That's why that reporting was needed. And as a tax commissioner, I thought that was too soon. I thought shutting down gratis 60 days after Memorial Day weekend was too soon. There will be reporting. A lot of tax commissioners, they have to ask for extensions to get their digest to the local government services to get approved. They need that time. I felt like the end of the year was probably enough time, but we kept it on an additional 6 months to give them just additional time. Just for anything they may need, we kept it up an additional 6 months.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Knight, do you have a question?
I want to make sure I'm clarifying a couple of things. So gratis is out there. It's the original system. It's a backup to drives.
Well,
Or it was the original, we were running concurrently till we got drives up. And also there is data available on gratis. My question, I want to make sure that data is now either in drive so that if there is a titling issue with our local tax commissioners, they can get it once gratis goes down. Is that?
once gratis goes down, they won't have access to it.
So where will they get that data?
That's why that's been up an extra year, basically, for them to get any information they need out of the system. And we'll have GATO in May. We can explain that in May, that gratis will be going down June 30th. If there are any reports, anything you need, be sure to pull them before June 30th.
But is that something that is year after year after year? So 2 years from now, one of our tax commissioners comes in and says we need information, and the only place you can find it is gratis?
I don't know. I mean, as a one-off, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think it would be a normal routine practice that tax commissioners need information out of gratis.
Right. And the other thing is we look through here, it's a $3 million cut, but we're cutting off at the end of the fiscal year. Why are we doing this at the amended budget? Is this part of the cost of keeping gratis going? Is that $3,084,000 and some change? Is that all of what supports gratis, or is that just a portion as it has slowly
That was
started.
what was left for the budget for gratis. Is that correct, Ken? That was what was budgeted for gratis through the end of the year, or through the end of the fiscal year,
But yet we're keeping it open to the end of the fiscal year.
June 30th.
I think that's all the questions right there, Commissioner, if you want to.
Okay. Again, on 4265, it kind of falls in line, Verizon phone bills, cell bills, hotspots, unneeded devices, landlines, and again, moving from custom servers to standard servers, 115,000 in motor vehicle division. Drop down to 42.7, you have the Office of Special Investigations. Again, the first one is the insurance programs. Drop the next line down, 4272, reduce funds for computer charges, reflect savings. Again, timekeeping, 8,900. Again, that's consistent across divisions. 4273, reduce funds for contractual services, reduce call center assistance. These were 4 temporary employees at 110,000. 4274, telecommunications, again, Verizon servers, reduced $12,000. Last, in OSI, reduced funds for 1 vacant position, comes out to $66,000. We'll go down to tax compliance. 4281, the insurance program, $76,000. Drop down to 4282, reduced regular operating expense. This is for the training and conference, $152,000. Reduced funds for 10 vacant positions. This comes out to 608. In those positions, let's see, actually it's 12 vacant positions. It's 6 admin support positions, 2 training positions, 1 IT systems administrator, 1 compliance manager, 1 revenue agent, and 1 tax examiner. Again, all vacant positions. 4284, we eliminated 1 floor in our building, which was a savings of $330,000. 4285, reduced funds for computer charges. Again, this is the time clock, 8,900. 4286, reduced funds for contractual services to reflect savings from reduced utilization of PCAs or private collection agencies and tech services. These are system enhancements that allow DOR to better score collections so they can get more money per year per zone. Department of Revenue pays roughly 8% on the money collected by these agencies, rather than keeping the full amount that the Department of Revenue agents can collect. To give you an idea, and we've got a breakdown here of a comparison between PCAs. Mr. Hartman, I think that's one of the things you asked for Friday, a comparison between revenue agents and private collection agencies, the amount of money employees we have compared to what they collect. We can certainly go over that. Do you want to go over it now, or do you want to go through the tracking sheet first, Mr. Chairman?
We can hit it real quick now while we're on it.
Okay. The 2 sheets, you've got one's a little larger than the other one. The larger sheet has the same information as a smaller sheet, but it has a timeline in the middle. If you look at FY10, Tax Compliance Program Return on Investments, FY 2010, on the larger sheet, you see we collected $65 million. We had 224 agents. The average collection per agent was $293,000. This is about the time that ITS came on board, withholding tax and sales tax. Around 2012, ITS implemented income tax. We programmed it for income tax. Now you're going to see a peak in 2012 of 311 employees. And I was asked, how did we start dropping employees so quickly? Well, 2012 was the peak of the recession. We had people working in the Department of Revenue that had been making 6 figures. They were now making 32.5 as a revenue agent 1. They needed the job, needed the insurance. They came to work. Excellent employees. But we began to get better. We started making program changes in ITS. As you can tell, by 2014, our collections are at $209 million with 189 agents. The average collection per agent is $1.1 million. And you can follow that trend where we're reducing employees, getting higher collections with less people, and our return on investment. If you look to the second to the right column, FY19, that's the last full year, our system and our employees collected $316 million with 130 employees with a return on investment per employee for $2.4 million. That's why when you ask about the auditor and ATD, when you ask about hiring more agents, I believe the solution is investing in innovation. This is proof in the pudding right here. Yes, we have 130 agents. We have $2.4 million per agent. Could we use another auditor and ATD? We find something for them to do, and I'm sure they'd find revenue. I don't know if they would have this kind of results. This speaks volumes to ITS. This speaks volumes to the vision that the state of Georgia had 10 years ago when they worked to bring ITS online. And we've continued to listen to developers and programmers and make changes, and we're seeing huge rewards on that investment. On the large sheet at the bottom, you see the same comparison for auditors. Private collection agencies. On the big sheet at the bottom, these are private collection agencies. You start in 2013, they collected $13 million. We paid out $1 million. You skip over to FY16, they collected 10.4. We paid out $838,000 in commissions. And as you see the FY19, it stays pretty consistent from 16 to 19. Now, we have just made a conscious decision to try to pull away from PCAs. We're not eliminating that partnership all of a sudden. We've encumbered $1.5 million to test this, to see if our theory is correct. We feel like our state employees can do a better job in private collection agencies. So, Chairman Watson, you had some concerns the last time we talked that we were going to do this and we might be making a mistake. We're going to gradually get into this. But I'm extremely confident that I'll be back next year showing results similar to what you see along the top, that our revenue agents, our state employees can do a better job than these private collection agencies. And not only that, we get to retain the 8% we're paying out as a collection fee. The PCAs are getting the low-hanging fruit. They send letters out, the taxpayer cuts a coupon off the bottom, they send it in with a check, and by the agreement we have with them, we have to give them a cut of that commission. Our agents can do that work. They can do it better. And the proof is at the top line. If you look at the smaller sheet, again, the top two sections are what we just went over in the larger sheet. But the bottom section talks about the auditors. Let's skip over to FY14. Total collections for auditors, $147 million. The average collection, we have 126 auditors. The average collection per auditor is $1.1 million. That was in 2014. We have a 15, the very bottom number. Someone asked this question the other day. What's the return on investment per auditor? I think it was in the joint appropriations meeting. 15-1 in 2014. You follow that line all the way over to FY19. You see that we're collecting $270 million with 111 auditors. Average per auditor is $2.4 million. The salary for that auditor is $65,000, where fringe is $80,000. A total collection of $8.9 million and a 30-1 return on investment. Does anyone have any questions on those two sheets?
I do, real quick. And I appreciate what y'all are doing here. And I mean, I've done the same thing on my farm. I used to pay somebody 8% to sell my crop, and I told them I'd sell it myself and I'd keep that 8%. So I know what you're talking about. Obviously, I can control a lot there, and I have all the data myself. And I noticed what is the fast enterprises rollout and levy team hired during the first 3 years? Is that kind of what you're saying there? I guess who?
Correct.
Can you explain who's? I mean, I'm sure there's data that has to be collected and rounded up for them to send this out. And I know you've eliminated some vacancies in both budgets, a pretty substantial amount. Don't know how long they've been vacant, which I guess is another question, but I guess if our people are doing it and then they're sending out letters, they've got to get the information from somewhere.
The vacant positions are not tied to FAST. Those vacant positions I've mentioned thus far, everything we've talked about thus far has nothing to do with FAST.
Okay.
Okay, FAST Enterprises is a system that owns ITS. They are the major player in the market. I think they work with about 35 different states. 10 years ago, our system was very siloed. We didn't communicate very well. That's where you can see the innovation and the efficiencies through the revenues collected. But FAST came on board, like I said, in 2000, actually it was late 2009, they came in with withholding tax and sales tax. They were small portions of tax collections. By 2011, early 2012, we had implemented income tax. We had programmed it for that. So, and we continue to meet, we meet weekly about SQRs. Where do we need to make subtle changes in the programming to catch, to allow more returns to flow through without problems? The system has, the developers and IT architects we've got with FAST has continued to work with our staff. We have 43 developers at Department of Revenue that work with FAST, with this system. Of the 43, 11 are state employees. 8 are contractors. The remaining 24 are FASTs. That's what we call them. They're FAST Enterprise employees, we call them FASTs. Okay. Of the 24, not all are paid through us. The state of Georgia has such an excellent reputation with this system that they use the state of Georgia as training ground. We have 15 free FASTs at Department of Revenue. When I call them free, we don't pay them anything. FAST brings them in to train them. They're 1 or 2 years seniority. We train them up. We've got 9 that we do pay. Now, they're expensive. They're quite expensive. We've got 9 that we pay. We have a site manager. The 9 work with the 15. 6 of the 15 we just had worked on the central assessment project. They're designated to leave end of February. My point is we have 43 total developers on FAST. A third of them, FAST gives them to us to work on projects to learn. So we've got 11 state, 8 contractors, and 9 paid FASTs. It's those individuals that work on this system. It's those individuals that need the credit to see how well we're doing today. You know, in 2015, or it was about 2014, they were telling us, we've got ideas to help the state of Georgia with collections. But in 2014, I understand that we were still won't do it our way. Once we opened up and started listening to them, letting them tell us how we need to program the system, we saw drastic changes. We saw incredible improvement there. So when we talk about the vacant positions thus far, I don't want to confuse this. This is something different than what we've talked about thus far. This is ITS. This is the FAST Enterprise that came on board 10 years ago. This is where we're seeing the bulk of our revenue come in.
But they're providing free help so that you can go out and collect 1.3 million per agent.
Well, no, 1.3 is current year, so that's not a full year. If you'll look back to FY19,
yeah,
2.4 per revenue agent.
But you're able to do that because of the help that they provide and the resources that they provide. Because I noticed that you eliminated 2 project managers and eliminating 6 FAST resources in the 21 budget. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I saw FAST up here and it made me think about that. So you may get to that later, but.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chairman Knight, do you have a question or you want?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, comment and clarification for the commissioner. I'm glad the commissioner put this on the desk because I'm going to, for the sake of talking here, and we're talking about auditors and we're talking about this reduction in technology service, I can't quite follow this budget because there's in 2 or 3 places where it's technology services. But I assume, and I want to make sure I'm looking at this, can you break this down? Is that part of what we're, the system, if you will, this ITS system? Because and before I get there, I know I'm jumping around, I want to remind everybody that this General Assembly, and some of us who have been around since, 05, 06, 07, saw the siloed approaches. So you're very correct, Commissioner, in regarding the technology. This General Assembly has made sure to invest tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the Department of Revenue to upgrade a system that, quite frankly, before 2000, I mean, it didn't talk to each other, it didn't do anything. And quite frankly, I think that's why Georgia has been successful in its business as a state, because we make compliance easier because we've got a system that works, okay? It's friendly, it works. But it's based on this integrated tax system. And that's what Ways and Means and this appropriation, again, and you've got a pretty good grasp of it for not having been around as long as some of us, but it's integral in this. So I guess my question is what of these cuts are to the resources that are running this linchpin of a system that this General Assembly has painstakingly invested hundreds of millions of dollars in, that has improved efficiency in collections, has helped prevent fraudulent tax returns from being filed and money going out of the state, all at the same time making this a much friendlier state to do business in. It's all revolving around this technology that we invested in, again, that started coming online from 10 to 12.
Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, what are we cutting out of that just to get down to the lit log? Because that is the linchpin of this state, its collections, if you will.
Okay. The technology services portion of your question really needs to be addressed in the next FY21 tracking sheet.
We're listening. We just need to know, Commissioner, because this is, if we don't get the money in, then we got bigger problems than what we're seeing here. And I think that's a great concern.
Okay. I can tell you, when we submitted our budget, they wanted efficiencies, and we felt like we provided a good start. We found like 4%. No one's excited to cut their budget, but we got in there and we had some great ideas. From Verizon to custom servers to standard servers, all that was able to produce great results for us. Then when they added the gratis portion onto it, which we felt like that was coming, it wasn't a huge surprise. We drives us in for a reason. We felt like gratis would go away soon. So the amended FY20 budget, we felt like we made some good cuts and we're able to move forward. With FY21, there's some additional cuts, and we'll go over that. I've got notes here on my tracking sheet. I'll be able to go over them. And it does have to do with this system. It does have to do with some of the developers. Can I respectfully ask for us to go over it when we go over the FY21 budget?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. I don't see any more questions, Commissioner.
Okay.
Maybe it'll all come full here in a little bit.
I hope so. I believe we were on the 42 8.5, and again, this was the private collection agencies and technology services. Last at the bottom of the page is 42.87. This is $398,000. Again, the Verizon phone bills, streamlining the technical services, telecommunication services we've got. If you flip to the last page on the FY20 amended budget, at the top we've got tax policy. Again, the insurance DOAS. Then you go down to 4292. You got 2 vacant positions. You got an attorney and legal analyst for $140,000. $6,000. 4293, you're gonna reflect the savings for, again, timekeeping, Chronos. The 8,900 we've seen several times already. 4294, operating expense, travel, 13,000. 4295, again, the Verizon phone bills, hotspots, custom servers to standard servers, about $7,000. Come down to taxpayer services, again, the insurance DOAS, 4210.2, personal services to reflect savings for the realignment of duties of 5 positions, 5 training positions. Your sheet says 3 positions, it's actually 5, and that's $201,000, okay? So you need to make a correction there. It's not 3, but it's 5. 4210.3, regular funds for regular operating expense. This was the savings from 1099G. We spoke to about this. It's also the 1099 INT form that we no longer mail out. All this information is on our website. After talking to CPAs and taxpayers, we felt like this was a great opportunity for savings. Most of these, if you use TurboTax or a CPA, this is information they automatically retain from the year prior. If you don't have it, if you've lost it, you want to go to a new CPA or a new tax service, you can go online and get that information. But us mailing out 1099G forms, we felt like a waste of money. So that saves us about $660,000. Reduce funds for computer changes to reflect savings to transition time report. That's Chronos. Again, 4210.5. Again, the Verizon phone bills comes out at $62,000. Reduce funds for contractual service to reflect savings and reduce utilization tech plan. That's reduction of contract staffing. That's 1 IT project manager, 3 IT quality managers, and 6 IT business analysts. A total of 1.2. Again, vacant positions. That's the cuts that we are proposing for FY20.
So we had a contract there that we were paying, but there wasn't any people doing the work in the contract, or?
I think I believe the work was completed. Is that correct? Okay. It was funding, but it was not utilized, and some of the contract projects they were on no longer exist. Completed.
Okay. All right. Questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to ask you, just try and put some of these things in perspective, I guess.
Okay.
It's not always easy just looking at the line item, but on line 42.7.3, under Office of Special Investigations, you've got reduced funds for contractual services for reduced call center assistance, $110,000. Not one of the larger ones, but I'm just wondering, trying to put it in perspective, what does that do to can you tell me who the contract is with? I mean, doesn't the state?
Well, we have contracts with temporary workforce. Force is one of them.
Okay.
That's the name of the company. And to be honest with you, I'm not picking on that particular company, but there were several companies out there, and they would send us anyone. Again, with the labor market the way it is, we don't need just a body with a pulse. I need somebody that wants to come work. And they would send people to us that just were not working out. So we put parameters. Either give us a quality candidate or don't send us anyone. This job, call center employees, they've got a tough job. They don't have many people calling them wishing them a happy, good day. We don't pay a lot for that workforce. And they are finding it more and more difficult to send quality candidates and to retain them.
Yeah.
Once you go through training the candidate and you put them on the job, and it takes a while for them to be able to answer the type of questions they'll get from a taxpayer. We just were not successful through these temporary agencies.
So this is the call center that you all operate, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
Yes, sir.
And but you don't think it's going to have a significant impact? This reduction, I see there's also a reduction in the 2021, you don't see this causing any significant reduction in being able to help taxpayers with questions and so on?
Deputy Commissioner Jessica Simmons is in the back, and myself, we came on at the same time. One of the first things we looked at was a call center. We reached out to Stephanie Aponte here at the governor's office and asked for help. We've been to Home Depot's call center. We have looked at the private industry. We've looked at other agencies within the state of Georgia. We made drastic changes. One of the things we did when we did regional office was not very popular, but I told them, I said, if you have a phone on your desk, you're now in the call center. We had terrible hold times, terrible abandonment rates. We have literally turned that upside down, and we have 6-minute hold times at tops, 0% abandonment rate. People are getting their phones answered.
Okay, that answers my question.
Look, I don't want anybody staying on the phone, and that's what I tried. When I went to every regional office, I asked a single question. How many of you own your own business? Most of these employees don't have their own business. I said, if you have your own business, you do not have time to sit on the phone an hour and a half and get fed up with the state of Georgia. So we've made drastic changes in how we approach the call center, and we're seeing the results.
Okay, good. I appreciate that, and that answers my question. I'm just thinking back, Governor Perdue, and through this very subcommittee here, I remember that we put pretty significant funds in for call centers, all things related to customer service, trying to make it easier for citizens to deal with the state. And when I saw that, I'm just curious. I wasn't sure how it actually impacted, or how big how large a impact it would actually have on your call center operations. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
On the vacancies throughout the amended, y'all provided us a sheet with those vacant positions, but there's only 3 of them that have actual dates that they were vacated.
That's probably the state accounting office. Just going by, because we had 3 individuals in admin that we moved over. They're now, we're giving them over to the state accounting office. They were in payroll, we're moving them over.
But I guess my question is, all of the other vacancies, how long have they been vacant? When did they become vacant? Were they all 12/31, or what date did they become vacant?
They vary from several months up to over a year. Just would be various.
Okay. And then I guess a bigger question, being your agency is so important to what we do here. I mean, you're at the top, you bring in the revenue, and according to my numbers, you're taking a deeper cut than what was recommended. And I have a number of 5.58%. And so I guess I'm just curious why the agency that controls the revenue that comes into this state that is vitally important is taking a deeper cut than what was recommended by all other agencies.
We gave our recommendations, and not sure I have an answer for you. We gave our recommendations, and we had our 4%. I can tell you with FY20, what I've said several times, I think with FY20, we're probably in a situation that we're going to be fine. But you're right, it's a higher number than 4%, but
Okay. Chairman Hatchett, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Curry, with the recent passage of the facilitator bill, marketplace facilitator, and I apologize that I don't know the answer to this question, but for many years I did file my own sales tax reports online. I don't know if this has been changed, or if I hope there are plans to change it so that we can capture what is being sold online. Is there going to be a separate column on the sheet that has online sales to be able to capture that?
we can certainly put it on there. That's one of the things we're working on right now. You talk about developers and ITS system. When this legislative body makes changes and changes tax types, that's not an easy lift. And what we'll do is we'll go back to the developers and architects, and we'll ask them to draw something up. I can't answer you definitely that there will be a different window for that. It's all taxable sales, I would think. If you're an online retailer, you'd still put in whatever taxable sales you have in the state of Georgia, which that blank is already there, that box is already there for you to fill out. So I don't know if there's a need for an additional box, but we can certainly talk to developers and see.
You would think that in auditing and knowing a business, because some businesses do have their sales at their box stores and they have online sales, it'd be able to help audit what's actually occurring at those businesses, because you do have some big retailers that do both too. So yeah, we do hope that they're capturing it all in sales and not forgetting some of it. So I would hope that could occur.
Right.
It's my opinion.
We'll make note.
Okay. I don't see any more questions, Commissioner, and I know we're kind of running behind on time, but this information is vitally important. But maybe as you move through the 21, there are a lot of statewide changes. I think we know what those are. If you can just maybe hit the ones that may be a little different, the vacancies and some of the other detailed information.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Now, the vacancies that we carry forward, I mean, I would think everybody would understand that, like, such as 4214, it was on FY20 as 4212, but it's the same vacancies carried forward. If you just want to look at the biggest changes, you can probably flip to you can probably flip to page 22 at the bottom under tax compliance. At 4288, again, this is reduced funding for contractual service, reflect changes from private collection agencies and technology services. This is to answer the chairman's question earlier about technology services in this area. Chairman Knight, there's a $4 million hit there. And yes, it is private collection agencies make up part of it. But Chairman Watson, I think you made comment earlier about going down to 2 FASTs. That's where a large portion of that reduction comes from. We mentioned earlier we operate with 43 different developers, 11 state, 8 contractors, and 24 FASTs. We pay for 9 currently. 3 are set to go away, or we offered up 3. We offered up 3, which cut us down to 6. This budget takes us down to 2 FASTs. So that's the biggest portion that's different from your FY19, or excuse me, FY20.
But they're free, right?
No, sir, we've got 15 free ones. We pay 9. If we cut 9 to 2, we eliminate 7.
So we're reducing our number and expecting them to keep their same number of free ones?
I haven't had that conversation with you yet because I don't know what our budget is. But no, sir, I wouldn't think they'd keep 15 free ones at the state of Georgia if they cut us to 2.
So then if they cut theirs and we've cut ours, and this is part of how we obtain the data to get the letters out and stuff the envelopes to bring in
yes, sir,
what's on your spreadsheet, then we may have a problem. Would that be a correct statement?
Well, if we cut our developers, look, ITS is the system we collect tax revenue. There are a lot of changes. There's tweak changes, enhancements, version upgrades with ITS. It's not simply a plug and go. You don't plug it in and just turn it loose. And I know you know that. I don't mean to come across as disrespectful. I'm just saying there's changes that have to take place in that system. So we need the manpower to do that. Now we've got our state resources. We have contract resources. But this is a fast system. Cutting to 2 FASTs, I don't know what that would do to the free ones, but it would have an impact.
Chairman Knight.
Again, Commissioner, I'm going back to what we've done in 2010, 2011, 2012, and even before, when we put literally hundreds of millions of dollars into the tax system in Georgia to make it what it is today, that, again, is sitting here with the state that is, again, for how many years in a row, the #1 place to do business.
Yes, sir.
And it's not only because we have low tax rates or lower regulation, which I think is very important, but it's also compliance. And as somebody who does this for a living, people want to go to a state where it's easy compliance. So we've got this system out here that is easy compliance from a point of view of compared to other states, and I've done other state returns, and they're just so much more difficult than the state of Georgia. But again, I go back to the collections. So even if I give you from a point of view of these agents and these, the people, and we're going to shift and say we're going to use technology more and more and more because it's more efficient, we can do it with maybe a few less people. But if you can't program the integrated tax system to go out and either put in the new laws that we put in or to run whatever series of data and collection notices and everything that we do, what good is this system? And how much is that going to cost us in the future from a perspective of, $2 or $3 million, whatever it is, in these numbers? Is that going to cost us $10 million, $20 million, $50 million because this system we've basically got a race car, but we don't have a qualified race car driver to drive it?
Right. I don't know what impact it would have. You would think it would, if you don't have people that's most familiar with the system there, it would have some impact. But we have really good developers with the state side. We have really good contract developers. To your analogy, ITS is a race car. It's high performing. There's a reason that we get the free ones. I mean, they don't give them to us because they like us. They give them to us because we're on the leading edge of this system. But I said this earlier. I will take whatever budget given, and we will work to provide the absolute best service we can. But I can't guarantee that we'll continue to have the number of developers, even if cut down to 2, the free ones. I don't know what impact that's going to have. I don't know what FAST is going to do with that.
Again, and Commissioner, I know you're in a tough spot, and I hate to be this way, but again, we've got a race car that's huge investment, that if we don't have somebody who knows how to drive it and drive it at its capabilities, then the state perhaps is over-invested in something that is going to end up being something great to look at but non-functional. And my last comment is, if I'm not mistaken, last year, I think was it last year in the conference committee, or was it in, I want to say it was last year in the conference committee, some positions had been cut from ITS, and I believe that the department came back and said, whatever you do, don't cut those. So what's changed from there? What's changed from last year when the department was sitting there saying, all the way up to conference committee and the appropriations, conference committee, where some of those positions, these exact same positions have been cut, said, look, cut us elsewhere, but this is vital. What has changed since then?
I'm not sure I'm prepared or qualified to answer that question. Been on the job 9 months. I wasn't here a year ago when that was. So that was
former Commissioner Riley.
Yes, sir.
Who I know this General Assembly had worked with for years, and she was integral, a great commissioner, and had helped build this system to what it is. Maybe we need to ask her from that perspective. And again, Commissioner, I know you're in a tight spot. I appreciate it, but the collections of this state are too important to let this system, not fully reach its potential, use it to its potential to make sure we're collecting all that is due to the state, especially in these tight budget times.
Chairman Purple.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much money would it require to add the 9 contract employees back? How much did that save us by cutting the 9 contract
We talked about
employees?
a lot of different contractors. Are we still talking about fast developers?
Yeah.
Okay. We currently have 9.
And we're looking to go to 2.
2. So you're talking
So
about a
add
difference
those
of
7 back.
7.
Yeah. How much would it cost?
Okay, let me say this first. During our proposal, we offered to go to 6, and we felt like we could operate with that, it'd be fine. So I don't know that we need 9. But these FASTs, like I said, they're quite expensive. They're $340,000 each.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
That's a ton of money. But when you figure in the 15 free ones, you're probably paying for them through what your other 9, but you average that cost out, it's not that much more than what we're paying our developers. So 340 times 7 is what that number would be. But I don't know that we need. I'm certainly not telling you that I need to hire 7 FASTs.
Right.
But these FASTs cost $340 each.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Harrell.
Commissioner, let me understand this. We're talking about these developers that make programming changes to the software system, the ITS software system, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And this was a system that was purchased well before your tenure.
Yes, sir.
And it's something that you've inherited. It would be interesting to know, when we purchased that system and moved through this, what the anticipation was on how many of the software providers, employees or contractors and developers would be necessary to remain in your office today versus when that system was purchased. I agree with the commissioner here in that we may not need the number that are there. And my question really is, do we have in our agreement with this provider the necessary tools to exact the deliverable that we believe we were promised? And are we getting the deliverable we believe we were promised? And as we've moved down this path, is this the anticipated number of developers and expense that we thought we would be incurring so many years down the road, or is this, maybe it's lower? I don't know. It's just it's a question I'm asking, but I would tend to support your assertion that it's just because we're reducing doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to be able to provide the service. And I would certainly use every opportunity we have to go back on the provider and ensure that we are getting the deliverable we were promised.
Okay.
All right. One more on the building real estate savings, the Century Center.
Yes, sir.
I noticed we had 1 floor in the amended, and we're
Right.
going to 2 floors
Yes, sir.
now. And pretty decent savings. How do those contracts run? Are we able to just tell them?
No, we have amendments. We work through state properties. We were on a 10-year lease, 10-year with it. And we've worked through several amendments thus far. We had a meeting about 3 months ago where currently the landlord owner for Century Center, we occupy not a fluid 15 floors. So we've got second floor we can give up. We've got floors in between us. It's hard for them to lease a floor here and floor there. So what they would like for us to do is consolidate however many floors we need. So we're taking 1 block, and they would have another block of floors they could lease out to someone else. So this was a mutual agreement that we could go back, reduce our footprint in that building, give them some floors back. It reduces our budget, our expenses, gives them an opportunity to lease out several floors together, So, you know, as a tenant, the last thing you want to do is have your business model or your business scattered throughout a building. So it was something good for them, it was something good for us. So we went back and talked about an amendment, and we've signed both sides. So they're pleased with it, so are we.
Okay. All right, any more questions? Well, Commissioner, I guess just before we let you go, I guess again, I need to ask this. We're making some reductions in your budget, not based on what was recommended. And I just, you know, you're vitally important to what we all do here, and we're talking about fast agents, and I don't know what was in the agreement, and I would like to, if you could maybe work on that, what we agreed to and how long, and what we were supposed to provide as a state with these fasties or whatever they're called. But I mean, we're taking deeper cuts than what was recommended. If we need those guys, if we agreed to utilize those people, then that's what we need to do, and not just eliminate them with
Right.
the risk that the free help is eliminated, with the risk that we don't collect what's on this sheet right here.
Correct.
That affects everybody else.
Right.
So
Yes, sir.
look forward to hearing back on that. And if there's no other questions, if committee members would come up here immediately after, I got a quick announcement.
Okay, thank you.
We're adjourned.